wily trickster, Mercury was the Roman god of commerce, communication, and travel. The patron of thieves, messengers, and merchants, he was also responsible for conveying souls to the underworld. As the chief messenger of the gods, Mercury controlled the flow of information, and often used this position to his advantage. Like Hermes, the Greek god on whom he was based, Mercury challenged moral and physical boundaries. He was the only god in the Roman pantheon who could freely cross into the underworld. He possessed a winged helm that allowed him to fly and carried the potent caduceus, a wand with serpents wrapped around it. This latter symbol was frequently confused with the rod of Asclepius. As the chief messenger of the gods, Mercury controlled the movement of all things, goods, ideas, words, and people. Mercury was usually depicted in a nude, beardless youth, though he occasionally wore a short tunic and a cloak fastened around his neck. He wore winged shoes and flew with the help of a winged helm that Vulcan, the god of forge and fire, had fashioned for him.
Let us take the character of Mercury. Now, the planet Mercury in astrology, which has come down from the inscription tablets of Sargon, and which has never changed greatly its meaning either in Eastern or Western thinking. Mercury, to the old astrologers, was described as a neutral power. That Mercury served almost completely according to the nature of the planet with which it made its first aspect. That the power of Mercury, like that of the Greek Hermes and the Latin deity Mercury, derived therefrom with some restrictions, was the messenger of the gods. The peculiar symbol of the mercurial message, or the messenger, was the power of the dog, the faithful dog star. And the power of Mercury was associated with the faithful transmission of knowledge. And the ancients placed this symbol under the control or direction of Sirius, the dog star, the star of the faithful one. And it still occurs in some of our religious rituals and so forth. And in the Quran, one of the animals that was permitted to enter heaven was the faithful dog that went into the cave with the seven sleepers of Ephesus. Now, the seven sleepers of Ephesus is another interesting legend relating to the seven and this recurrent number. In this case, the seven sleepers, the seven powers of the soul, and the faithful dog, the body, all went to sleep together. In the study of Mercury, we also go into our Hermetic analogy, and we come upon the sovereign symbol of Mercury, which was the original Egyptian deity Thoth, T-H-O-T-H. Thoth is actually the root of our word thought, and has to do with the principle of mind. Thoth was regarded as the author of the great body of sacred writings, more than 40,000 volumes. We are not to assume, of course, that these were the writings of one person, but the writings of one mind distributed among all living beings. Universal mind writes all things. The Thoth, or Toat, of the Egyptians later became the Thoth Hermes of the Osirian cycle, and this in turn the Hermes Trismegistus of the later Hermetic teachings which arose in Alexandria about the beginning of the Christian era. Thoth's symbol is a stylus and a writing tablet. He is the symbol of the faithful recorder of things. He is the one that receives the messages of the gods and faithfully preserves them for all time. He is therefore the symbol of the messenger. He arises as Merodach in another group of religions, Babylonian. He is also preserved to us under the form of Nebo, the deity from which the great kings of Assyria and Babylon, such as Nebo, Belshazzar, derived their name. They based their names upon this deity, Nebo. It is also interesting that when Moses died, he died on Mount Nebo. Nebo was the Mercury of these people, also represented with the stylus and the writing tablet, and in the Babylonian cuneiform described as the Lord of the writing table. The Lord of the writing table. And Moses died upon Nebo. And Moses himself is remembered particularly because of the two tables of the law. These analogies get dim in interpretation, but the roots of them are very important. In India, the planet Mercury is called Buddha. And this is another very interesting situation. Mercury is also associated with the day Wednesday in the Nordic mysteries, associated with Odin or Wotan. And Wotan again occurs among the K'iches' of Central America as their ancient navigating deity. Mercury or Buddha is represented in one of the Indian Buddhistic paintings as seated in the midst of the planets, acting as their messenger or servant. Buddha's power as Mercury therefore ties with the possibility of the philosophy of mind. And we know that Buddha, from the beginning of his ministry to the end, preached the danger of the wrong use of mental energy. Mercury in modern astrology is said to show the relationship between the mental energy of the individual and his ability to express himself through the sensory perceptions. Mercury, therefore, rules the five senses, which Buddha calls the five hindrances. Buddha was locked to the struggle to the death, practically, with the problem of those parts of man's constitution which are under the control of Mercury. Thus, the religious symbolism and the philosophical symbolism tie together.
The planet Mercury is named after the messenger of the Roman gods, because even the ancients could see how swift and fleeting it is in the sky. But it wasn't until recently that scientists began unraveling Mercury's many mysteries. Mercury is the smallest planet in our solar system. Its diameter currently measures just over 3,000 miles, about the size of the continental United States. Like Earth, Mercury is a terrestrial planet with three main layers: a core, a mantle, and a crust. Only Mercury's crust has no tectonic plates. Also, its iron core is enormous by comparison, making up 85% of its radius, while Earth's inner and outer core account for just 55%. Because of the core's exceptional size, it's had a surprising influence on Mercury's overall size by causing it to shrink. The hot iron core has slowly cooled and contracted over the planet's 4.5 billion years. In doing so, it pulled Mercury's surface inward and has caused the planet to shrink radially by more than 4 miles. This shrinking planet is also the planet closest to the Sun, orbiting our solar system star at an average distance of roughly 36 million miles. Such proximity affects Mercury's atmosphere, or rather, the lack of one. It only has a very thin exosphere, which is traditionally the outermost layer of a planet's atmosphere. This exosphere is made of oxygen, sodium, hydrogen, helium, and potassium, all whipped up from the planet's surface by solar winds. The lack of atmosphere and close proximity to the Sun also makes Mercury a planet of extremes. The surface temperature can climb to 800 degrees Fahrenheit during the daytime and fall to 290 degrees below zero at night. Mercury's proximity to the Sun is also the reason behind its age-old reputation of being swift and fleeting. The sun's gravity pulls harder on Mercury than any other planet, and like all planets, Mercury travels in an elliptical orbit, slowing down when it's farther away from the sun and accelerating as it draws closer. Clocking in at an average speed of over 100,000 miles per hour, Mercury slings around the sun in just 88 days. From Earth, Mercury is difficult to observe because it's fleeting and so close to the sun. And so far, it's only been visited by 2 spacecraft, NASA's Mariner 10 and Messenger. Those missions gave us much of what we know today, but future ventures are in the works with high hopes of revealing more of Mercury's secrets.
Surprising is Mercury. The least explored of the rocky planets, because of the difficulty of getting into orbit around a planet so close to the sun.
5, 4, 3, main engine start, 2, 1, and 0, and liftoff of Messenger on NASA's mission to Mercury. A planetary enigma in our inner solar system. Now going through the sound barrier.
Following a direct route to Mercury would be impractical. A spacecraft would arrive at such high velocity, it would need to haul a prohibitive amount of heavy fuel in order to slow down enough.
We just had spacecraft separation.
Groundward solids have jettisoned.
So Messenger controls its speed by stepping from one planet to the next, using their gravity to slow itself.
Daddy's tired of being evil.
Even so, Messenger still approaches Mercury moving so fast that it is forced to fly past the planet 3 times, slowing on each pass. Until after nearly 7 years of flawless navigation, it arrives safely in orbit. At last able to begin its mission, mapping Mercury's surface.
That first image ever acquired from orbit around Mercury was amazing. When it finally came in, it looked perfect. It looked exactly like we expected it to be. For me, that was the real moment when I realized that we had successfully made it into orbit and everything was working.
This pioneering voyage has led to a completely new idea of how Mercury may have formed. Mercury is the most cratered planet in the solar system, with many puzzling features that hint at a violent past.
Mercury has a very unusual orbit. If you were on the surface of the planet, you would actually have to go around the sun twice to get one full Mercury solar day.
Also highly unusual is the planet's disproportionately large core.
Mercury is basically a big ball of metal surrounded like a tiny bit of rock.
How do you end up with a planet that has so much metal inside and then almost none on its surface? That was a huge mystery.
And the major question is, why? Why is it like this when the rest of the planets aren't?
A clue to understanding these strange features was found in Mercury's chemistry.
So very soon after we got into orbit, we started to get chemical data back from the surface, and we immediately got some surprises.
The tiny probe detects volatile chemical elements in concentrations that no one had thought possible this close to the sun.
These are elements that go into rocks, but that evaporate at relatively low temperatures. And immediately told us that some of the older ideas of how Mercury formed could not be correct.
What Messenger discovered about Mercury could suggest a new twist in the story of the solar system. Just a few million years after its formation, the young Mercury is seething with the heat of its violet birth. Slowly, a crust forms, rich with volatile elements. If it had been close to the sun, these elements would have evaporated before the rock hardened. So what could explain why they're so abundant on Mercury today?
The orbits of the planets and their current locations have changed over the history of the solar system. So where things are today doesn't mean that's necessarily where they formed. They could have and probably did move from different locations to where they are now.
One possible thing is that Mercury didn't form where it is today. It formed much closer to the other planets, maybe even outside of Venus or Earth, or somewhere in between there.
If Mercury had formed near Earth and remained at a more comfortable distance from the sun, its destiny could have been very different. But it wasn't to be. So what turned it into the strange, sun-scorched world we see today?
We don't know the full story. What we have right now are theories, and as we have new observations, we are trying to change everything to fit those observations.
Messenger's evidence of the volatiles on Mercury's surface and the unusual size of its core suggest an interesting new theory. It's possible Mercury began life as much as 160 million kilometers further from the sun than it is today. In the region of space where the young Earth is also forming. A region with scores of planetary embryos all fighting for position. In the chaos, it's possible that something large pushes Mercury off orbit and in towards the sun. Mercury brushes against another planetary embryo. This glancing blow removing much of its crust and mantle. Now little more than a metallic planetary core. Mercury continues toward the sun. peculiar elliptical orbit we see today.
Before we sent the messenger mission to Mercury, I think we had a very simplistic idea of what it was going to be like. And Mercury turns out to be a more complex place with a more interesting and complex history than we had previously imagined.
But of course, all things have to come to an end, and once we were out of fuel, we could no longer burn our engines to keep from crashing into Mercury.
And sequencers, chief launch detector on.
Engines running yours, continue
After 4 years of observations, Messenger's fuel finally runs out. And the spacecraft adds yet another crater to this tiny world, where any prospects for life were scorched away when it was thrown too close to the sun.
Is the closest one to the sun, but its surface temperatures can plummet to as low as minus 180 degrees Celsius. It has the strangest sunrises and sunsets in the entire solar system, and one day on this planet lasts about 2 years. But you don't have to survive a whole day down there. We're sending our team member Chase on a mission to spend just 5 seconds on Mercury.
Huh. Mercury doesn't sound so bad. I just don't get why it's so cold. It should be flaming hot.
Detecting extreme temperature fluctuations.
Yeah, Mercury is hot and cold at the same time. That's because instead of a proper atmosphere, Mercury has an exosphere. And this exosphere is almost as thin as the vacuum of space. It doesn't contain enough molecules to transfer heat around the planet, and that means surface temperatures go from one extreme to the other. During the day, the surface is blasted by intense sunlight, and that results in severe heat, like 430 degrees Celsius. Then at night, all that heat gets lost in space, and the temperatures drop to minus 180 degrees Celsius.
Well, at least there's no dust storms on Mercury.
Sure, there's no weather and no climate on this planet, but there are plenty of things that can kill you. Extreme heat, intense cold, lack of breathable air, severe solar radiation, and if anything goes wrong with your spacesuit, you'll be toast.
Toast or popsicle, depending on where I land. You know what? I've died way too many times to go out there without prep. Rico, fire up the simulatoratron.
X-29 sim on standby.
Simulate.
Thank God!
It really is a vacation about now.
Yeah, me too.
Perfect landing spot on Mercury won't be easy. Mercury is the smallest planet in the solar system, even smaller than Saturn's moon Titan. And its terrain is just as bumpy as its temperature fluctuations. It has so many craters, cliffs, and ridges that finding a flat surface to land on will be a big if. Then, of course, there's the lack of atmosphere, which makes landing even bumpier. Without air resistance, your spaceship will be approaching the surface at a very high speed. So if you're not interested in crashing, you'll need a spaceship with a powerful propulsion system to slow you down during descent. And Mercury's proximity to the sun complicates things even more. That's because the sun's enormous gravity causes this planet to orbit the star on an elliptical path. That means that sometimes Mercury is closer to the sun and other times it's further away. So landing on Mercury would be like trying to hit a moving target while being pulled strongly by the sun, all the while trying to manage your speed in a place where you can't just parachute down. Yeah, it's hard. If you managed to drop down onto Mercury during its daytime, it would feel like you landed in an oven. The sun on this side of the planet is so incredibly intense that it will roast you alive. And Mercury's daytime lasts a long time. To be specific, one solar day on this planet goes for 176 Earth days. Weirdly, that's twice as long as 1 year on Mercury, as it only takes 88 Earth days to revolve around the sun. Of course, there's no way you'd last a full Mercury day. You'd cook within minutes. Now, even NASA's spacewalk suits are designed to withstand temperatures of 120 degrees Celsius. Mercury is 3.5 times more scorching than that. Your spacesuit's outer layers would start degrading within seconds. In minutes, your suit's critical systems like life support and cooling would fail, and you'd experience instant heat stroke. Then, you'd be cooked and die.
Oh, so you're saying I could last 5 seconds on there? That's all I needed to hear. Rico, initiate landing sequence.
I don't recommend time surface R. Calculating 0.012%.
Rico, oh my god.
Try landing on Mercury's night side.
Okay.
Now, the dark Mercury would be freezing.
Detecting the temperature of minus 180 degrees Celsius.
Even your spacesuit's most advanced heating system wouldn't last long in this brutal environment. Within minutes, your heaters would fail and hypothermia would set in. Your body temperature would start dropping rapidly. In only 10 minutes, you'd be dead. And that's if nothing else goes wrong.
Yeah, landing on...
You could find a landing location between the two extremes. It's called the Terminator Zone.
The Terminator Zone!
Yeah. This is the zone between the day and night, and temperatures there might be bearable.
Calculating the Terminator Zone temperatures would be extremely hard. The temperature on Mercury drops to the extremes rapidly.
That's true, but this is your best shot at spending 5 seconds on Mercury. And hey, remember I mentioned the strange sunrises and sunsets on Mercury? Well, here's your chance to see them, too. Mercury has a double sunrise. It's because it moves on its axis very slowly, but orbits the sun very quickly. At certain points, the orbital speed becomes faster than its rotational speed. And if you were standing on Mercury at that moment, you'd see the sunrise, then stop, move back, and rise again.
Oh, cool! Double sunrise! Rico, okay, let's do this. Let's land, this time for real.
Landing complete. The temperature reading at 130 degrees Celsius.
Okay, yeah, feel toasty, but not cooked. Another successful mission for the Astro King and his dumb sidekick Rico. Okay, so when do we get to see this double sunrise?
You must remain on Mercury's surface for a few hours to witness the retrograde sunrise.
Oh, why didn't you say that before we landed? Okay, well, I mean, it's not that bad. I can stick around here for a few hours.
I don't recommend that. The temperature will rise drastically in 3.2 hours.
Oh God, Rico, just say 3 hours. It's fine. I'll be fine, okay? I'll stay right here next to the ship where... Ow, okay, that rock is hot. Don't read into that. Nice.
We recently did the kids.
In your spacesuit, you're losing oxygen.
Skay. Hot. Can't breathe. Why can't I ever get hit by a macro meteorite? Why does this always take so long? I didn't even see the double sunrise. What if Guy puts it on his Patreon because I subscribed last month at the Red Giant Deer? And then pitched a story where I don't die.
Oh, classic Chase. But don't worry, he'll be back for his next adventure. He always comes back. What adventures should we send him on next? With a gorgeous view of Jupiter in the sky. Well, that's a story for another What If.